Okay. Hi, everyone, and welcome to my kitchen. I'm Dr. Joyce Farrar-Jardura. I'm a registered dietitian and nutritionist and licensed in several states. And I wanted to welcome you on behalf of Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare and Tufts Health to this cooking demo. So I'm going to start by sharing a little bit about my culture, and then we're going to dive in. So everything I'll be sharing today is going to be deep rooted in Central American cuisine. So welcome everyone that's here. I can't see you, but you can always type things in if you have any questions. We'll get to those at the very end. So we're going to go into two of the most important and foundational recipes that we have in Honduras. And many of our Central American cousin countries also use these. But because I'm from Honduras, I grew up there, I've been in the US for the past 20 years, I'll be focusing on some of my staples that we tend to cook at home quite often. So we're going to be talking about tortillas. We're going to go down to the roots. I'm talking about corn. So when I talk about corn, I'm not referring to popcorn as is more traditionally used here. We're talking about corn tortillas. I know that many times in the US, we think about tortillas, we might be thinking about flour, but in this case, it's going to be corn. So when it comes to corn, corn has a long history with the Mayan and the Aztec culture dating back 10,000 years or so, when they started using a lot of corn. And when the Spaniards came, they started calling the traditional food that we would make tortillas, and that actually means like little cakes. So then that is the root of the word as far as what we know now, tortillas. So we're gonna start with the second recipe actually, because tortillas need to be eaten warm. That's the whole beauty of it. I believe, as someone who grew up eating tortillas pretty much regularly, and I still do, that it is a sin to eat cold tortillas. So we're gonna start off with the second recipe, which is going to be something that you can add to a lot of dishes. If any of you are familiar with like sauerkraut in the German culture or kimchi in the Korean culture, in Central America, we have something similar that is a quick pickled cabbage recipe. And this is known as repollo or curtido in other Central American countries. So let's start with what we're going to need. I'm going to be switching the view here so we can see. So I have just a typical head of green cabbage. And the interesting thing about this tortilla is that many times when you go to Honduras or other Central American countries and you ask for salad, they might actually give you something like this, because we don't do lettuce very much, at least not traditionally. It's a lot easier for us to grow cabbage in Honduras, so we tend to use it as a salad and also as an addition to many dishes that I'm going to go into. So what you're going to need is a nice cutting board, a very sharp knife, and a head of cabbage. It can be red cabbage, purple cabbage, or green cabbage. In this case, this is the most traditionally one used, the green cabbage. You're going to chop it up as finely as you can. So if you can see, I'm going really close to the head of cabbage. And I'm trying to make it as thin as possible. Because guess what? We're not going to be cooking this. We're going to be eating it raw. So if you can see, this is very finely chopped. We want to chop it this way. You can see a single strand is pretty thin. The thicker you cut it, the more crunch and the harder it might be. So I really like my cabbage slaw to be as thin as possible. So we're going to start cutting it. And once you have enough of it cut up, you're going to blanch it. What that means is you're going to run it through really hot water or boiling water, just through a strainer. And this is just to clean it up, make sure that there's no bugs or germs or anything in there. And another reason that we like to use cabbage is that it's usually a lot cleaner. So you see the inside is neatly packed from the outside. So you're going to be chopping it up. This is just to give you a demonstration of how it's meant to be cut. I have some ready to be able to add here with you. So I'm going to put this into a strainer. And we're going to then be putting some hot or boiling water to just clean it up. Okay. So then what I have next are of course, the different ingredients that you might add. Like the most basic type of cabbage slaw is going to be the cabbage with a little bit of seasoning. If you want to go a little bit fancier though, we can add some carrots, some shredded carrots. We can even add some bell peppers, and we can add some purple onion. So we're going to chop those up too very finely as best as we can. So the carrots are already ready to go. We can chop up some of the red bell peppers just to give it some color. So if you think about a nutritional perspective, we want our foods to have a lot of colors. The colors is where the antioxidants are packed. Those are the compounds that are found inside foods that are going to help us with our hearts, good for heart health. It's going to help us reduce blood pressure. It's also going to help us reduce the oxidative stress. So basically, it's anti-inflammatory, and it's going to help our body be able to get rid of toxins more easily. So we have some bell peppers, red and green bell peppers that I'll be chopping up. And the more color, the better it's going to be. So then we're going to go ahead then and mix in the red bell pepper and the green bell pepper to give it some color. And we're going to take some of those carrots as well. Now, if you want to get really fancy, you can also add in some jalapenos. But for now, you can see how colorful that is. And we're going to add a little bit of red onion. Now, you could be adding the other type of onion to the yellow onion, the Vidalia onion. But what I will say is that the red onion has this purple color. And this is where we store the antioxidants. This is where we find the quercetin that's so good for fat metabolism. You can chop this up. Some people like to chop it up, leave it like longer wedges. I actually like my onion to be really nice and thin. So we're going to be chopping this up and adding it for some color and also lots of antioxidants. So everything that we're preparing here is going to have tons of nutrition in there. So you can see more and more color here. Now, I didn't make the whole recipe, but the whole recipe would call for around 2 cups of cabbage, and then about a 1/4 cup of the carrots, 1/4 cup of the bell peppers. But I tend to not follow recipes very often. So I just try to mix it up to what feels good, what I have in the fridge, but make sure that the majority is going to be the cabbage. And then we're going to go ahead and add some flavor to it. So we added some colors. That's all well and good. We have the crunch. And I mean, all of these things by themselves, cabbage is really good because it provides fiber. It can help our body get rid of things by moving our digestive tract sooner, get rid of toxins as well. It can help decrease cholesterol levels. But now we're going to add some flavor. So let's go ahead. I'm going to share what I tend to add. So there's a little bit of olive oil, and I tend to use the extra virgin olive oil every time that I'm cooking a salad or using a salad, so I'm not cooking. This is better for salads, salad dressings, anything you drizzle on top and it's ready to eat. If you're going to be cooking, I recommend you do not use the extra virgin olive oil, but use the regular olive oil. So you're going to add a little bit of olive oil. You could add a tablespoon or 2, depending on how much you're making. I just added a little drizzle. And you could also add vinegar. So it has to be acidic. So this is where vinegar comes in, as well as lime. So lime, the green kind, not the yellow lemon, is a big staple in Central American cuisine. So we tend to add lime to a lot of things. Talk to any Central American, to any Honduran, and we add lime to soups. We add lime to our salads. We add lime to a lot of things. Actually, I'll just be adding the whole half a lime here. So this is going to be what's going to give it lots of vitamin C, but also some of that flavor. And then you can add a little bit of vinegar. This is going to be up to you. You can add white vinegar, which is perfectly fine if you have that at home. Or if you wanted to make it more nutritionally dense, and if you're looking to improve your blood sugar levels or you're wanting to manage your diabetes, using apple cider vinegar is going to be a better option. So this is quite strong. I won't add too much of it, but I am sharing the recipe with all of you. In this case, I'm just going to add a teaspoon to mix it up. And I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of cilantro as well that I forgot. Another staple in a lot of Central American dishes and Mexican dishes. Okay, so then we're mixing this up. We have our acid, we have our oil, we have our colors, our crunch. The last thing to add will be a little bit of salt and pepper and cumin. So add a little bit of salt. And I have a cilantro lime seasoning here. You can add a little bit of that too. The traditional recipe calls for salt and cumin. You can add pepper as well. So then this is ready. Look at how colorful that looks. So now that we have our topping ready, and I mean, this can hold up to a week in the fridge. It'll be great now. If you eat it later today or tomorrow, it's going to be even tastier. So I like to add this even to my salads on top to give it more color. I like to add it as a side salad if I'm eating some rice, some chicken. And the most common use is on top of things. So on top of a taco, on top of an enchilada, or on top of plantain chips. So I'm going to be coming back to this in a little bit. So that was our very first recipe, the repollo hondureño, or the slaw, the Honduran slaw. Now we're going to be moving on to our second recipe, which is the biggest staple in Central America and Mexico as well. And this is going to be a corn tortilla. So the way that the corn is prepared, and this is something that has never ceased to amaze me. The Native Americans living in Honduras years and years, centuries ago, they discovered that when they added calcium hydroxide or lime, or it would be in the form of wood ashes, to the corn would be able to release some of those tightly bound nutrients. And it would also release some of the husk it's fiber, right? But it would make it a lot softer. So this process is known as nixtamalization. And what we didn't know, but we're doing it because of this, native wisdom, is that this process of adding this lime into the corn, and this is something that you would leave overnight, and then you would take the corn, you would rinse it, actually releases the niacin, which is one of the B vitamins from the corn. Now, if someone has a heavy corn diet and they're not using the lime to release the niacin, people would develop pellagra, which is one of those B vitamin deficiencies. So this is really interesting because when the Spaniards came to Central America, they started eating corn. They started eating a heavily corn-based diet. However, they were not aware of this nixtamalization process, and they started to develop pellagra, which is a niacin deficiency. Now, this is the beauty of adding this lime, that it releases the niacin and a lot of other nutrients to make it more easily absorbable by the human bodies. So that is, the wisdom that we had in our culture to be able to prevent those deficiencies and really get the most nutrients from our foods. Okay, so when it comes to the corn tortillas, we have several brands. We have to make sure they're not using cornmeal. That's the first thing. It has to be corn masarina. Okay, so I sip of water there. So I have two options here. This one is King Arthur's, which is surprisingly really good. And this one is the organic masa harina flour. This is finely ground white corn. So it's going to be very finely ground. It's almost going to feel like wheat flour, but it's not as fine. And this is the one that I grew up eating. And this is maseca. So this is imported from Central America. This one is imported from Honduras. And you can find this in different stores. So I'm not a brand affiliate for any of these. I'm just sharing what I use at home. So this is going to be gluten-free. And these are going to have around 1 gram of fiber, 1 to 2 grams of fiber, 1 to 2 grams of protein per tortilla. And depending on the size, it might be just about 10 grams of carbohydrates. So this would fit very nicely in any type of diet, even if you're going for like a lower carb or a diabetes controlled diet. Okay, so then when we start with the corn tortillas, we're going to be measuring out roughly 2 cups of the masa harina. Give me 1 second as I get ready to switch gears here and to show you all the tortillas, because this is going to be a little bit more elaborate. So let's switch some things up here. So you're gonna need around 2 cups of masa harina and about 1.5 to 2 cups of water. I recommend warm water. Now, this is where it becomes a little bit trickier. It's gonna be up to you to really get a good feel for what that dough should feel like. And you can also add a little bit of salt and a teaspoon of oil, in this case, olive oil. You can do it without it. The olive oil is just gonna help it be a little bit more moist and retain some of that moisture. So then let me show you how we can make the corn tortillas. At this point, I have mixed the masa harina with the water and the salt and the oil. So it should feel like a very soft dough. You should be mixing it. And this one does not mix too much because I wanted to show you how to mix it. You can use a spoon to mix it, or you can just use your hands. That's perfectly fine. This is how we mix it traditionally. And it should be like a soft Play-Doh. So take a look at that. It is not sticking to my fingers. If it is sticking to your fingers, it means that it's going to need more flour. And if it's too hard, it means it needs a little bit more water. So how will you know if it's too hard? Once you start to flatten them out, if the edges start to crack too much, it means it's too hard. You can always modify it. So you can add water or add flour as needed. So then once you have the masa harina ready, you're going to make small balls. I like to make them this way. And then you can flatten them a little bit. That's all that's needed. And I'm going to show you my trick to making the perfectly round corn tortillas. So I'll be using a tortilla press. You can get this online. I've had this one forever. Now you notice this tortilla press is made out of steel, I believe. So if I put the tortilla right here, it is going to get stuck. So what we use is a plastic. In this case, this is just a Ziploc plastic bag that I just cut the edges. So I'm going to end up putting this right there. And we have the tortilla dough in the middle. I'm just going to go ahead and close it. And you're going to flatten it out. Make sure it's perfectly centered, or as best as you can. And then you're just going to flatten it out. Now, if you do not have a press, you can see how beautifully round that is. If you don't have a tortilla press, you can get really creative here. You could still use a plastic bag like this, and you could use something hard and flat on the bottom, and you can use something hard and flat on top. So this might look like maybe even using a bowl or using a bowl that is, yeah, that one, please. You can use something like this. This is a perfectly round, transparent glass bowl, and you can just flatten it. So maybe the next one I'll do using this one. Okay, so a trick here is if you're getting stuck, to put a little bit of water in your hands. So I don't have any water right now, but that's okay. Let's see how it's coming out. You can see, okay, you can see the edges are nice. They're not really cracked. It was easy to grab. But you have to be very careful as well. This is very delicate. If they break, it's okay. Just make it back into a ball and restart again. So what I have here is a griddle, and it's around 350 degrees. I'm gonna go ahead and put a tortilla there for around 35 to 45 seconds. Now, you cannot leave the tortilla there if you're cooking them, because guess what? They will get burnt. So this is a quick type of recipe. If you're making tortillas, you gotta make sure you're like on top of your game here. Don't leave the kitchen. It only takes about 35 to 45 seconds, then you're gonna flip it once. It's almost like searing a steak. You want it to get a little bit of color. Now, traditionally, we have used a comal for making tortillas. In this case, I'm using a griddle because it's easier for you to view it, and I don't have to be using my actual stove. So it's been around that time, and I'm just gonna go ahead and give it a flip. It can be a little bit warm. Actually, it will be hot, so you could be using a spatula if you wanted to. I made these enough times that I can use my hands without getting burned. But the trick here is going to be able to flip it once, then twice. And after that second flip, really, this is just cooking through. We're going to start putting a little bit of pressure on it so that you can get some of that steam going inside the tortilla to fully cook it from the inside. So this should stay there for another 45 seconds. If your tortilla is getting burnt, want to make sure we reduce the temperature. And if it's taking too long, I want to make sure that we increase the temperature. So when you go to different markets where they're making a lot of tortillas, the temperature tends to be a lot hotter. But they know their stuff, so they're not gonna get burnt. For us, I'd rather start a little bit lower temperature and then make it go up. So then we're flipping it one more time. And what I have here is not very fancy. It's just a paper towel. And I'm going to start putting a little bit of pressure on it. Once it starts to puff up, you're going to know that that tortilla is ready. If it's not puffing up yet, it means that it's not ready. So while it cooks here a little bit longer, I think we could go up a little bit higher on the temperature here. I'm going to show you what it would look like to cook a tortilla, to flatten out a tortilla using the other method. So let's make it into a ball. You flatten it out a little bit. And then you put it in the middle of the plastic. And let's just see what this would look like. I've actually never made it this way, but here's to trying out new things. You can see how it's expanding. And I try to make this one a little bit smaller than the other one. But look at that. No need for a tortilla press. You get a quite nice tortilla here. It's a little bit thicker, and that's okay. I'm going to put it onto the griddle. So let's see if it's puffing up now. Okay, you can see that puff. You can see it's starting to get puffy. You want it to get puffy as it can get. That means the steam is cooking the inside of the tortilla. Okay, so then this is a beautiful tortilla. You see it's puffy. You can see that steam coming out. And now would be a great time to start taking it to the next step. So how do you store tortillas? I have a tortilla. It's a tortilla warmer, really. It looks like this. And you would put the tortillas in there. I like to put some in here. I have some that I made earlier. You would put them in there. This is the cloth that I put in here is to absorb any condensation, and then you just close it. So then this is how you keep them warm. Again, it is not a great idea to eat cold tortillas. They're never going to be as tasty as the warm ones. So then what do you do now? Great question, Joyce. Once you have your tortilla, you can put any protein you want in there. In this case, we have some ground beef. This is the lean beef. And we also have some avocados. Looking nice in this plate. And guess what we're going to add on top of it? We're going to add our slaw. So then this is going to give you a little bit of taste, crunch. There we go. And I have some queso fresco that we just grated a little bit in case you like your cheese. And some avocado because avocado is the GOAT. We love avocados. It's got lots of those healthy, heart-healthy fats. And this is how we tend to eat our corn tortillas. You can really put anything you want in there. It could be some beans in there. It can be, tofu if you're a vegetarian as well. Or it could be any type of ground meat, rotisserie chicken, anything that you want inside the tortillas. So then let's go ahead and take a bite. Okay, so let's open it up to questions. Oh yeah, one more thing. Sorry about that. When you're storing tortillas, you can store them and you can reheat them. And when you reheat them, make sure you drizzle some water on top of them and put them back on a griddle or a comal or a skillet. And then you flip it. That water you're adding is going to help it not crack and remain soft so it doesn't go stale. Okay, so I'm seeing some questions come in. Wonderful. That looks amazing. Any recommendations if you don't have a griddle with a large, yes, a large frying pan would work. Does the pan need to be oiled? It does not. It does not need to be oiled. There's nothing there that's really gonna stick. If you were adding some cheese to the masa, which some people do, then in those cases the cheese might stick. But because we're not adding anything that might stick, there's no need to oil it. And you can use any type of skillet or frying pan. That should be fine. Great question. And I'll just say, if you're using the pre-made store-bought tortillas and you're warming them up, I would still use the same process to warm them up. I would drizzle a little bit of water on both sides and then put it in a really hot skillet or frying pan. And then it's going to get really nice and soft, and then you eat it. Again, cold tortillas, I don't know. But warming them up, even if they're homemade or if they're store-bought, I would always use a little bit of water. Great. Any other questions? So these are some of my go-tos that I could probably not live without. And whenever we can, we eat these. The kids love them. My 2-year-old, as soon as they started to eat, they were eating corn tortillas. You can just, there's no going wrong with these. You can put anything you want there. We tend to eat them. If it's a breakfast meal, I would put some scrambled eggs in there. I would put a little bit of beans. Refried beans are really yummy. And then some avocado, a little bit of cheese. So yeah, many ways to eat it. See, any other comments or questions? Do you ever use red cabbage? Absolutely. I love red cabbage, and I sometimes do use it. Our go-to tends to be the green cabbage, but the red cabbage, those colors, the deep red, the deep purple, it's going to be jam-packed with antioxidants. So that would be even more anti-inflammatory, better for our overall system. So yeah, I would use a combination if I had, or I would use the red cabbage. So there's no way to go wrong with any type of cabbage. The whole trick is to make sure you're chopping it very finely and then adding the seasoning. So I have the recipe as a file in the comments if any of you want to, download those and try these out at home. Can you name the cheese again? Yeah, the cheese that we use today is called queso fresco. You can get it at any grocery store. Usually it's next to the queso cotija. There might be some Hispanic foods there, Latino foods there. That's the one that I like to use. If you don't have that, you can crumble some feta, or last resort, you can also add a little bit of Parmesan. But queso fresco tends to be a little bit lower in sodium and it retains more moisture and has a little bit more protein. Great questions, everyone. Let me see. What else can I share? Any other questions or tips? Any nutrition related questions at all? I'd be happy to answer them. Awesome, so much. Okay, looking forward to trying to make a tortilla. Nice. And yeah, the neat part is that you don't need a press. If you have it, wonderful. But that trick with the bowl or even a book can really help. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. I really hope you are able to try some of these out. And again, add the seasoning that you want. Just make it tasty. There's no way to go wrong with a little bit of vinegar and lemon and salt, and then just lots of colors. So thank you all for joining us today. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it.